Welcome to the Faded Spade Podcast with your hosts, Tom Wheaton and Sean McCormack.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Faded Spade Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Wheaton, founder and CEO of Faded Spade. Sean McCormack, the poker boss, has the night off. He's actually having to work, but we are here with our next guest. He's a man of many talents. He's a man of many nicknames. You might know him as Chicago Joey, Poppy GTO. We'll call him the Prince of PLO, the king of freaking content, and right now the poker PI, the cross-industry PI, the whole investigator situation from cross-industries in the past. Joey, Ingram, my man, thanks for joining the Faded Spade Podcast, brother.
What's up, man? How's it going? I like that. I like when we were talking before this, you know, everyone has their own podcast voice, so I can tell like your voice got a little more intense right away, a little more raspy. I kind of like that. I like what you're doing with this intro voice right there. That's cool.
I don't know, dude. It's like the WWE character just takes over, man.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I have a bunch of voices I do for different videos and stuff like that. So sometimes people don't like always like the voices. Some are more polarizing than other ones, but I think they're fun to experiment with and kind of see what you like. And yeah, as you mentioned, it's like a character you can play with some of these voices. So it makes it more enjoyable.
It's just sometimes it just comes out naturally, and I'm like, "What the hell was that?" All right, let's go with it. So, all right, man. So, look, you know, I know you've had a really busy 8 days, right? But we've been trying to talk through and plan this for probably the last 30. So, you know, the purpose of this podcast, Joey, right, is to share your entrepreneurial, your kind of career journey. You know, the path you were on from your roots to now. You know, it's to inspire people and educate and kind of engage folks who also have a vision for their life or a path of trying to live some type of entrepreneurial life, right? And what you do is very entrepreneurial. So
yeah, I mean, everything I do on entrepreneurial, basically. I mean, that's what I always wanted to be when I was a kid. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I started when I was very, very young. And anytime you work for yourself or play poker, or if you do content, or you make money through your services in some capacity, or you sell a product, obviously you're in the entrepreneurial game. So yeah, I haven't really worked for anyone else in that capacity since I was 21 years old. So that's about 13 years ago. So I've been providing for myself for about 13 years now.
No shit. So, you know, if you're watching or listening, like, pay attention, guys, because the things we talk about, and it'll be a natural flow, but the things we talk about, and even times when Joey gives advice, it's coming from someone that's walked the walk, right? So let's get into it, man. So, all right. So all your life, you said you've been an entrepreneur, right? So take me back to your roots, man. Like, where are you from? You know, where'd you grow up? And like, how did you kind of get on this path to where you're at?
Yeah, I grew up outside of Chicago, about 45 minutes south of Chicago. And, you know, I grew up just a mother. My father was not really in my life. We'd see him like occasionally during the summertime or something like that, but it wasn't like we had a relationship or anything like that. So I grew up with my mom, and she was like, you know, quite poor when we were first young, when we were first kids, kind of she was 21 years old when she had me. Like, she didn't know what the fuck she was doing as well. So she was trying to figure things out. I had a little sister as well too, slightly younger than me too. So it was kind of us three. And then my mom started, you know, getting older. She started progressing. She started doing better at her job, and we kind of would move up there. And I don't know why, I was always into sports. I watched baseball. I was always into statistics. I would take notes. I'd always write things down and make up these like worlds of games and of basketball, of baseball, of football. I'd take the real players, and then I'd put them in a notebook, and I would just like make up all these stats and play like fake versions of the game and stuff like that. And then I think once I got about like 8 or 9 or something like that, maybe even younger, I started mowing lawns for money around the neighborhood, because I was like, I don't know why, I was like getting out there mowing some lawns. So I did that, and I did the paper route, which are pretty normal things I think kids do. And I just always thought like, oh, I could do something like this. And then as I got older, I started selling candy at school.
What was your markup?
What? Oh, my markup was pretty high, bro. It was not like, I mean, I wasn't making I got an award for the entrepreneurship that I showed through this candy, even though I got in trouble because they said I shouldn't be selling candy at school. But so I was doing that when I was in junior high. So what's it up to, like 11 to 13. And then I started doing eBay stuff after that. with another guy, with like a guy that was kind of like my father figure, but he's also super fucking out of line. So he kind of introduced me to poker, but he also introduced me to strip club. It's like this kind of guy that like your mom is sort of happy you hung out with, but at the same time, like maybe you shouldn't have spent that much time around the dude.
Right.
So
how old were you?
I started working with him when I was like 14 or something like that.
Got it.
Just like putting stuff on eBay for him. And then he taught me the eBay game. We would buy a bunch of stuff and we would go to like these houses that were foreclosed. Like you'd go to the house, we'd like go walk through, we would take shit that we wanted. And then he started selling these cars at the auto auction. So we'd go to the auto auction and we'd drive the cars back and we'd put all these things on eBay all the time. So I did eBay primarily for him when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. And my mom's like, you got to get a different job. You can't keep working for this fucking guy. So I basically from there, I kind of just, got a little bit away from the entrepreneurship, and then that started back up again. I mean, I was a server, which is in a way, it's your own form of entrepreneurship too. And I still kind of like to sell things as well. But yeah, so I was always into this sort of mindset from a very, very early age.
That's wild, man.
Yeah,
I mean, like I remember I did baseball cards and some shit, but I wasn't doing eBay at 14 years old.
Oh yeah, I did baseball cards too. I mean, I had a bunch of those. Yeah, I was super into that as well.
Did you have like the Beckett looking at the price of the cards and trying to mark them up a few bucks or what?
Yeah, I was too obsessed with those fucking the books that had the prices in there. I forgot the name that you said the name and like brings back memories. Yeah, like it's such a crazy world that like people have thousands of these cards and then they sell them and then the person just sits the card there. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me anymore in the whole entire trading card world. But at the time when I was young, I freaking loved it. I'd put them in the plastic. I had the books. I mean, I'd go through them all the time, just looking at cards I had. I don't know, man. It was weird to think back on now at this point, but there was no internet, I think, then. So it made more sense to me.
That's wild, man. I was going to even ask you, like, what were the first things like you remembered as entrepreneurial? And it's funny that you naturally just came up with it and just started talking about it, because when I started going through this process too, like you had to really think back to what those things were. But it seems like this was just a behavior that just you grew up in. And then, so what happened? Like, okay, 14, 15, 16, what happened next? Like when you were 18 through 22 or something like that, like where does the story take you next?
Well, my mom wanted me to go to college, of course, because she spent so much money on my schooling. And I told her I got no interest in doing college. So
no shit.
I didn't want to wake up. I think the main motivation, I just didn't want to wake up in the morning time and get yelled at by my mother every single day to wake up early. I hated doing that so much. So once I graduated high school, I was like, fuck this. Like I went to college for a very, very short period of time. And I was like, I'm not doing this ever again. Like, I just don't want to do college. So I got a regular job as a server. And I think it was like a Pizza Hut delivery driver or something like that. And then I started serving after that. And then, I don't know, server was kind of for me. I get to talk. I got to meet girls, right? Like it was this perfect thing of you got to make like $15 an hour when you're 18, or 19. When you're 19, you're probably making like $6.25 an hour. So it like seemed like a better way to be able to work your own hours. And I loved working, so I'd work double shifts all the time. I was like a fucking machine back in the day and working. I guess I'm still a machine now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just always had that work ethic from a very, very, very young age. I always wanted to make it for myself. I always wanted to prove make my parents proud or prove them wrong, that I didn't need to go to college. And I always just knew that I would make something of myself. And I just didn't know what exactly that'd be. And I always thought I'd be some sort of entrepreneur. I'd start a business and I would do really well with it. And then, yeah, I moved to the city of Chicago when I was 21. I want to get the hell away from where I grew up at, get away from my family, get away from everybody I knew, and just kind of get out in the world and see what the hell's out there in the world. So I had a girlfriend I was dating at the time. I worked at a place called Lucky Strike, which is like a bowling alley. I could hire in bowling alley as a server. So a guy I went out with a few times, he's like, you want to move in with me? I have a roommate just left. I said, let's do it. So it was a very cheap place, like $280 a month, but it was the shittiest fucking bedroom that you're ever going to see when you're 21. It wasn't even a bedroom. It was like a fucking closet. It was like a size
studio, like a studio apartment type thing. 400 square feet.
It was a 4-bedroom, super old place on the 3rd floor on Clark Street in Lincoln Park. And it was just like, it was disgusting. My mom came there and cried when she saw where I was living, because I was sleeping on like the floor and I was so happy. And my mom came and started bawling her eyes out. She couldn't believe the accommodations I was currently living in at the time, because she spent so much money on school for me, and it expected me to go to, you know what I'm saying? So you got to go back to school, you gotta get a job. I'm like, yo, I'm living. This is great. Like, my mom, I'm like, this is my, this is amazing. But she didn't see it that way, unfortunately. So I kind of started doing that thing, and then working downtown as a server. And then I started playing poker as a fish, like a fun player. And I'd lose all my money all the time. And my mom thought I had a gambling problem. So, and eventually I found 2+2 poker forums at 22 years old. And I learned about bankroll management. And they said, if you make $200 at work, you shouldn't go to the 1-2 table at the Majestic Star and then lose the 200. You should play like 5 cent, 10 cent. So I started playing 5 cent, 10 cent on Poker Stars. And then I just started making some money eventually. And then I just said, I made $1,000. I said, fuck my job. I'm never going back again. I'm never going to work at these places again.
And have you ever since then?
No, definitely not. No
shit.
No, ever since then. I mean, I dedicated my entire life to it though. So I quit everything. I stopped working out. I didn't stop hanging out with girls, but I stopped hanging out with girls at the pace I was at. I stopped hanging out with anybody that didn't play poker. All I did was sit inside in that little bedroom on my floor. Then I got an air mattress. I played online poker all day long. I went on the forums all day long. And that is all I did for the next, it was about living there about a year straight until I moved out of there because I made enough money. But like I grinded every day for 1 year straight. I played about 10 to 12 hours every day. I would study the rest of the time. I would watch poker the rest of the time. And at the time I was just, I was very efficient with my process. I played a lot of tables at once and I moved up quickly. I got good quickly. And yeah, I first made a name for myself that time, 2008. That was like the first time.
No shit. So I want to back up a little bit before we get into the poker side of things, right? Because I know there was a ton of success there and your path and online, but I want to back up to a point to like what you were talking about, because I'm sure there are people listening who might be in the same situation or have gone through the same situation, right? So you mentioned like your dad wasn't around.
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of, it sounds like just put everything on your shoulders and a lot of responsibility, and you're going to grind and be a business guy and you're going to do entrepreneurial things. So how much do you think like your dad not being around affected you back then to become like the man you are today, really independent, really self-made, a lot of work ethic?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, right? I have no idea. Maybe there's some subconscious stuff he instilled in me or I took away from being in that situation. I mean, I think the biggest thing I took away is like, I don't personally want to be that if I ever have a child. So that's what that is. But, I don't really know exactly where that came from. And it obviously came from somewhere, but I think my mom was always a super hard worker. She was always like, trying to provide for her family. And she was super sacrificial of her own, her own life in many ways too. And I think that I just was like, you know what, I don't want to have to rely on her. I don't want to have to rely on anyone else. Like, I just want to be able to do what I want to do and not have to have a father to give it to you, right? Well, I didn't have that. So it's like, well, let me figure out how I can make this work, right? Let me figure out how I can do something for myself, type of thing like that. But, I'm not really sure exactly how not having my father really instilled something like that in me or work ethic in me. I think my mother is the person who I credit my personality with and my work ethic with. And it'd be great if I had a father because he would have taught me how to be a man at an early age. And I never learned how to do a lot of those things. And I'm still learning how to do those things now because you can only learn what people teach you. And, that was the man that's supposed to teach you these things that wasn't around. So it's like I learned a lot, but at the same time, there's a lot I didn't get to learn too that unfortunately, still learning now. But I feel like I wish I knew some of these things.
Everybody's path is different, right? And I kind of look at that too. And I asked it because I'm sure there are people who have that experience and they might not know which direction to go. And I love what you said about how like sometimes you learn things that you want to do in your life by watching other people do the opposite. Right. Yeah. And I've experienced that in my life too. So cool, man. Well, I just wanted to talk through that because I know that's something people will be able to relate to. So
yeah, I think like, a lot of that stuff kind of traces back to childhood. And these are things I've been researching a lot. And when I took a 2-month break from content, maybe 3 months, I took a long time off. All I was doing was studying every day. And I put about, I don't know, maybe some days I was putting on 10 hours of study a day. Some days I'm putting in 6 hours of study, but I'm studying every single day, just trying to figure out, okay, like how can I retrack my life steps from when I was younger to figure out how I became the person I am today, and where are all these strong qualities I have about myself, where exactly do they come from, and where does my ambition come from, and where does my desire to be great come from. And it all comes from watching other people out there and admiring people who have done these things. And I think that's where the biggest influence for me has come is, okay, I've just been inspired by different people along the way to do these different things. And most of the people I find inspiration in are people who are great at what they do in the various parts of the world. So I've always, that's what I wanted to be. I've always wanted to be great at something. And I really wanted to work hard to try to get to that point and do it in my own type of way.
Who are some people that like you look up to and kind of inspire you?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of athletes, really.
Yeah.
It was a lot of just kind of watching sports, because I played sports growing up. I played basketball, I played baseball, played football for a bit, but I mainly was good at baseball and good at basketball. So I played those things kind of growing up, and then I started playing games when I was young too online. I started playing like a lot of checkers, and I was a top checkers player on the online streets back in the day, on the Yahoo street. Shout out to Yahoo.
Oh,
checkers.
baby.
I used to fucking run some of those streets back in the time 1-0 matches, if anyone knows about that. Shout out to you guys. But so I was always like kind of in the mix with Madden. I was a top Madden player on PlayStation when I started playing that when I was younger too. So I was like, I think like I'd always found the people that were great in the athletic realm as someone I looked up to, and also like artists as well, for musicians or for actors as well too. I just sort of like, I thought that's what you're supposed to be, honestly. Like, I thought you're supposed to be famous. I thought you're supposed to want to be rich. Like, that's like the Western culture. It seems like that's what they teach you to be. Like, you want to be like, why would you not want to be famous? Why would you not want to be rich? Why would you not want to be these things? I feel like that was sort of ingrained in me in this early age. And it makes sense with some of the steps I've taken and why I've gone after attention and why I've gone the path I've gone down. So I think those are kind of the people I've really looked up to. And, in terms of like people I knew around me, I can't remember many, honestly. Like, there's no one I saw around me that was like, yeah, like I want to be like them, maybe friends along the way. There's bits and pieces of them, but in terms of like an adult figure growing up, I saw nothing really around me that I was like, this is what I'm after, really, for the most part.
It sounds like you almost, we'll get to the poker stuff, back to the poker stuff here in a minute, but it almost sounds like you went on kind of like a self-awareness journey, right? And I'm glad you brought that up, because now I'm thinking back to a few weeks ago, and I remember, I think the day I was like, damn it, I need to have Joey on this podcast, obviously for all the entrepreneur stuff. But I remember you were talking to Doug. It was like when you just got out of your hiatus.
Yeah.
And you said something, and I only saw like 15 minutes of the show, right? Because I was like, I had meetings and shit. But you said something, it was like, you felt like you were letting people down or stuff, something like that. And I remember being at a place like that in my life probably 9 or 10 years ago, and I'm 39 now. But I remembered all the stuff that was going through my mind, and I'm like, shit, I wonder if Joey is going through something similar. Because when you say something like letting people down, it's a lot more than just like content or business or et cetera, right? And it's like, So was it like the self-awareness journey you were on that you're kind of still going through, that you just said, I need to focus on this, or was it something else?
Yeah, I think that's really what it was. I mean, I just started pouring myself into like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel unhappy, or why do I feel the way I feel? And a big part of it was just my life makeup was very poor, and I didn't have somebody around me who I could really care about. And I started studying the basic needs, and I started studying being mindful, and I started studying the idea of learning and what it means to understand. And as I learned more and more about this and learned more and more about myself, I started to realize that a lot of these things that why I felt this way, kind of, you can trace these things back, and about letting people down, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whether that's, online in terms of with content, or in terms of with promises I made, or a number of different things, right? I think that, I hold myself to a high standard in a lot of ways, and I feel like I wasn't meeting those standards, and I didn't know how to meet those standards. And I still don't know how to meet some of these standards. Like, I've kind of thrown myself into content again because I had a prop bet with my friend Doug Polk, and we had to do each a certain amount of videos, but I haven't really been studying as much these past couple of weeks. I haven't really been talking about this particular subject matter the past couple of weeks, but it's still on my mind, and I can tell it's still there. And it's still something I'm very, very interested in, that I'm going to get back to after this month ends here in a couple of days. So but yeah, the whole letting yourself down thing, I think that's something that I still go through now. It's, either let myself or I let myself and let other people down, kind of thing like that. So I think that's a very real thing I experience. Yeah.
What advice would you have for people who might be going through the same thing and like need to go on kind of that self-awareness journey, or kind of feel like what you felt like? What advice would you have for them to kind of pull themselves out of it?
To start with that down that path, or pull themselves out of feeling that way, that they need to go down that path?
If they're where you were and then you started pulling yourself out of it, like what advice would you have for them to do the same?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I think the biggest part for me was just surrounding myself with someone to help hold me accountable and to help give me someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Because I had all these things in my mind that I would never articulate out loud. And once I started articulating them out loud, and once I started being willing to talk about them, I was better able to formulate my thoughts and understand exactly where I was coming from. And then I think on top of that, better habits. So I started working out again, and I started eating a lot healthier. So those are right away. And then I started studying. So I was acquiring knowledge on a consistent basis. So I had someone around me that I cared about. I was being held accountable and holding her accountable as well too. I was changing my diet and getting good habits back in place. And then I was acquiring knowledge and looking up the things that didn't know when I was studying. So I just kind of started from there. And, it's tough because it seems so easy to me, but I understand how so hard it can be for people if you don't have that person in your life that cares about you, that listens to you, that makes you feel heard or makes you feel understood. And I think for me, that was the biggest thing, and something I always didn't have in my life in a lot of ways, was just somebody close to me that I could be vulnerable with, that I could open up with, that seemed interested in what I'm saying and made me feel understood and made me feel listened to. And I think that was one of the most important things, really.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm glad we talked about it. I wasn't planning on even going down that road, but it just kind of naturally happened. And, I remember when I went through that, and I think everybody goes through that kind of stuff every now and then. One thing I asked myself was, I said to myself, is like, are the actions that I'm taking today, like, does that align with the man I want to be tomorrow, or the person I want to be tomorrow? And when I started like really dissecting that, that's when I started making some positive changes. And I think it's something that if you continually check yourself throughout life with that, like, it helps.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think that's a good thing, right? Like, be a person that you're proud to be. I think if you kind of map out, I'm big into the manifestation and visions, and just writing down exactly the kind of person that you'd like to be, or where you'd like to be with your life, and trying to create this person that you'd be proud to think about yourself and that you'd like to see in other people. So whatever that is, whether that's a good friend, a good family member, a good member of the community that you're in, someone that does what they say they're going to do. You mentioned, like, I could have canceled this podcast with you, and that's something that I'm trying to uphold the commitments that I make in these things capacities, no matter what happens. So if I say I'm going to do it, like, I want to make it happen. I want to do it, unless there's some sort of reasoning behind it. So it starts in these sort of micro ways where you do it on this level, and then eventually you get better at it and it becomes a part of who you are. So that's certainly something that I'm working at doing a better job of, because I haven't done that in the past.
There you go, man. All right. We're getting deep on the Faded Spade podcast. So let's do this, Joey. Let's go back to when you got introduced to poker, right? So we talked about the entrepreneurial, story from your youth. And now you just got out of your Lincoln Park apartment and you made your $1,000 and you're diving deep into poker. It's a passion. It's an obsession. What happened over the next few years there, brother?
Well, I always wanted to be well known. I think because I admired the people that were like the famous poker players back then that had their name in red on Full Tilt. So I wanted to make my name. So I made it Joe Ingram 1, and I was like, well, when I get to high stakes, I want everybody to know it's me. Like, I don't know if it'll be in red, so I want like my family to see it. I want people to see it. So I started, I just started on the grind, and I started in the 2+2 poker forums right when I started. So I was part of the community from 2007 on. And I always posted what I did, and I'd always play these crazy fucking sessions. Like, I'd always 24 table and just play 10,000 hand sessions all the time.
Damn.
So there was very few people that were doing things like this. So I started to become known as like one of the guys that just grinded the most.
Yeah.
So later that year in 2008, I did a prop bet. I said, I'll play more hands than anyone that wants to do it with me. I'll beat anybody. So I offered that challenge. I said, I'll take anyone. 2 people did. And right when I started, I was like, you know what? I'm obviously going to fucking destroy these guys. So let me make a prop bet that I can play. I decided 600,000 hands. I'd play 600,000 hands in a month. And these other guys, these guys got crushed pretty hard. And this was certainly the start of my prop betting career. So I did that. I got some action. What did I get action for that? It wasn't even a lot. It was like a few $1,000s put up against me. It was like 3-1 or something like that, or 2.5-1 back in the day. And I played 16 hours every single day. That's all I did. 24 table, 10 cent, 25 cent, 25 cent, 50 cent, and $50 full ring on PokerStars. PokerStars, they had like a representative that was part of that. So I won that challenge, and I played the 600,000 hands, most hands ever, and full ring in a month. And then I went on my first podcast, 2+2 Poker Podcast. They had me on an interview, and I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever done in my entire life. This is like, they're asking me these questions. I'd listen to these guys every episode 2+2 Pokercast put up. I was listening to that thing. I loved it so fucking much. Adam, shout out to Adam and MJ. Those guys were really, really great, and they put on such a great show, and they continue to, Adam continues to put on a good show now. And yeah, man, from there I started. I bought a car. I bought a little car for myself. Not too much money. I just never bought a car for myself. So I bought a car. And then,
what was your first car?
Well, the first car I bought like, I had a lot of cars before that. I was always into customizing my car. So I'd always take my car apart and I do my interiors. I'd work with the engine a bit. I'd tin it out. I'd always put my sounds and I'd put my system in there. I'd put TVs in there. I put neon lights in there. But I was like, I want a nice car one day. So I bought a little Mercedes C230 hatchback compressor. And I thought I was the man. I thought I was like, I'm got a silver, I was such an idiot. I was driving around thinking I'm the coolest motherfucker in the entire world with my little Mercedes. And I moved out of the apartment. I moved back near my parents. I got my own place there. It's about like a $700 a month place, 2-bedroom little spot. And then I started moving up the stakes a little bit. I started moving up stakes a little bit. So I started making some more money. So I started getting my bankroll up there about 20, 30,000. And I was like, I'm buying a different car. So I bought this M3 convertible because that was my dream car.
Nice. My
mom helped me out with that car. Shout out to my mother. She's happy about that. So I got that car, and then, but it got cold where I was from. So I was like, I can't drop the top in September, right? So I was like, well, where can I move to? Like, I got to get out of here. So my buddy Chris, he was also played the 10 cent, 25 cent full ring. We all each played the full ring together. We met each other on 2+2. I said, bro, let's get the hell out of here. Like, let's move. So we moved. We found a place in San Diego. We drove out. He came up to stay with me for a few weeks.
Chicago to San Diego.
We moved to San Diego. Yeah. So we packed up our cars. He had a little Saab. I got my M3. We packed it up to the brink. We got the hell out of there. We booked a place online. We went out to San Diego, and I kind of got started out there. I played another prop bet. I played 50,000 hands in a day. At that point in time, because 1 year later, I did another bet. I got $33,000 in action. These dumb motherfuckers, they bet me again that I couldn't play it, and I had to make money at it too. So I did it at 10 cent, 25 cent, 6 max, and I made 44 buy-ins. I made $800 at the tables. I destroyed it, and I played 50,000 hands, 20 hours. I made these funny videos on YouTube about it at the time. So that was like the next prop bet that I did. And then, from there, I was like, 2010, I started kind of moving up stakes. So I'd always shot take pretty hard. And I always wanted to get 25-50. I was obsessed with trying to get there. So I'm such an idiot. Like, I would play 5, 10, and 10, 20 all the time, super underrolled. I was like, I just need to get up there. Because I could always drop back down. I'd always make it back every time. It was easy for me to do. I'd go down to 10 cent, 25 cent if I needed to. I could always make it back because I would just play constantly. So 2010, they had Supernova lead on PokerStars, which is you make 120,000 and rake back or something like that. And so you could be a losing player and still make money. I was like, it's just like, I'm gonna try to get this. So I was up and down throughout the entire year. I could never build a bankroll. I'm such a donk. I was the most inefficient bankroll management person in the history of, well, probably not in the history, but in the history of like being a professional in some capacity. So I did a Supernova elite bet later that year, just for fun with like a friend. And I switched to the great game of Pot Limit Omaha because you get more points, and I got my ass destroyed. But
what year was this?
This is 2010.
Nobody was playing PLO then, were they?
Not really. No, it wasn't that popular, but it would obviously hold them a lot more popular. It's before Black Friday too. So not really, but they gave you more points. So you get money based on rake back for your points. So I'd get more points at PLO. So I said, well, I'm a 24 table, obviously, right? Like, no, we probably shouldn't have done that. It's a dumb idea. But I got my Supernova Elite then, and I found the PLO. So after that happened, I switched back to Hold'em. Black Friday happened. I traveled around America, lost all my money. Over in Florida, trying to be a live player. You know,
Where in Florida?
I was playing at Hard Rock.
Oh, no shit.
So I went to Hard Rock, and then I went to Vegas. We got a house there for the summer. I was miserable looking. I pretty much had no money. I had like 20,000 on stars. I got it back, lost it all. And but I was like, all right, we gotta get back online. We can't do this shit again. Like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. I'm not being a live player. Being a live player sounds miserable.
Florida's the jam for poker, man. I mean, that's my poker career. 2-5, no limit, Orange City, Daytona, just since around that time. And
I feel like I'm just fucking getting fired up about the story. I'm not making it. I'm just like going on about it. But I don't know. It's kind of I'll let you kind of pick out a spot, because I know I said a lot of things in there. So
no, it's good, man. I mean, I love the fact that at least you knew, you're like, screw this, I don't want to do live poker, right? So okay, so you're still doing online poker. Black Friday happens, right?
Yeah.
What the hell did you do then? And then, like, when did you start getting into the content YouTube kind of game? Was it all around the same time?
No, content wasn't for years. It wasn't for a while. Like, I kind of like made these funny videos at times, and I don't know what the hell I was thinking. You know, there was like a victory poker thing where I applied for, and I made like a funny video where, like, I was such a dumb video. What did I do? We found a girl on Craigslist, right? This girl came over on Craigslist, and I was like, okay, like, you're like my helper, and we're gonna like film this entry video or something like that. I was trying to be like a goofy spoof sort of thing like that, and I made another version of it too, and I got chosen, but Black Friday happened, so that didn't take place. So yeah, with Black Friday, I knew I didn't want to be a live player, so I kind of wrangled up my team of guys, and I was like, yeah, we got to get to Vancouver. Like, we got to get out of here.
Okay.
So my buddy Brad, who was Ball Cup, he was on Poke Forums. He was Supernova Elite guy too. He was in San Diego as well. I convinced him, because he was doing a lot better than me at poker. He was a lot more smarter than me I was about bankroll management. I feel like if I was good at bankroll management, I'd be one of the top players in the entire world right now at poker if I was better at my bankroll management, because the problem was never my ability to work hard or skill or get better or learn. It was always just the discipline and soft skills from there. So I kind of after Black Friday, I went to Vancouver with Brad. We got a way too expensive place. I borrowed money from him at the time, and I started playing. I got up there, started playing all day long. That's all I did. Played 25-70 PLO, trying to make Supernova Elite again, and I wouldn't make any money. I was like treading water for the next month or two. I just played poker all the time. That's literally all I did. I just grinded all day long. And then a couple months later, I made another Supernova Elite prop bet with my buddy Brad, my roommate. So I needed to get it in 2.5 months, I was like 750,000 points away. This was one of those craziest things I think I could ever did. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what happened. I just pushed through it, man. I just like, there's no option for failure here at this situation. Like, I'll put 24 hours a day if I need to into this. And that's what I did. Mm-hmm. So I basically played every single day. And then that December came around, and I needed to play about 450,000 hands in a month of PLO, which is by far the most anyone's ever played. So that's what I just did, man. I had about $12,000, something like that. So you get points along the way, mm-hmm. but I had about $12,000, and I borrowed some money from a friend too. I borrowed $10,000 from a friend, and I was like, all right, if I lose this, like, I'm broke. That's it. Like, I got no, like, I'm playing 2-4 PLO, which is huge. I have the 24 table every single day. I have to play 450,000 hands, and I have to make Supernova Elite. So I basically I got so lucky at the beginning of the month, I went on a huge upswing that just gradually went the other way on the way down. And then I ended up doing that month. I mean, I played so many hours. The second half of the month I played, it was about 14 to 16, 18 hours a day, every day, basically. So I did that. And then I got the Supernova Elite again there. I made a video, like a celebration video, like I normally do for my prop bets at the time. And from there, I changed my process after that, and I stopped mass tabling. I started 4-tabling. I started bum hunting, aka finding weaker players to play against, aka game selecting. And then I went on one of the most epic upswings in the history of the 2+2 poker forums. Yeah. So That was when I stopped. I went away from being I was always known for being a sick grinder, because I would play 10 to 30,000 hand sessions all the time. I might have some of the most 10 to 30 hand sessions of all time. Like my graphs I have from online poker are insane because they're so up and down, and there's so these huge sessions all the time. I was just a fucking machine when it came to that stuff.
What's so cool about though is like, you didn't know it at the time, right? But you were building your following, you were building kind of notoriety, right? And then when you jump to the content game, right? Was it like an intentional choice where you're like, I'm getting burnout from poker or something, or I want to do something different? Was it an intentional choice to jump into the content game, or did it just kind of happen?
No, that happened a few years after that. I mean, I always knew I was building a following. I always blogged, I always wrote. Like I was doing that on purpose because I didn't know for what. I just thought that's what you're supposed to do. Kind of goes back to the idea of like being fame or getting attention. I just thought that's what you're supposed to do, right? And it really motivated me so much because I was like putting this stuff out there. And when I was a mass tabler, man, I used to get so much people talking shit. I used to love it, man. I used to love getting in there, talking shit at the tables back. If they talk shit in the forums, I didn't give a fuck, man. I was firing back. There was sites where you could track your poker table ratings. You could track your results on there. I was battling constantly with people. I'm like, all right, like you say, I can't do this, whatever. I'm going to be, you know what I'm saying? So that stuff motivated me so much back in the day. It still motivates me now in some ways, but I'm pretty self-confident now. Like I believe I can do anything I ever would want to do, put my mind to it. It just takes effort, consistency, and just kind of starting it. So when someone's like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, I believe I can do anything. I don't think that's true. So it's not quite as what it used to be back in the day. I don't know if I believed that to be true. I just felt like it had to be possible if I just worked at it, because my work ethic is just, I feel like a elite at just putting in effort, and maybe definitely not elite at quality effort, but elite at a quantity, a number of efforts. So that's, but yeah, with content started years after that, man. So I started playing high stakes for a while there. I was playing, I moved up to, I made like 100,000 that next month of January. So I moved up to, I was playing 1,500 that month on Stars. And then from there, I just started crushing. So I made about like 450,000 the first few months there. And obviously that changed my life. And I stopped the work ethic. I was like, well, let me see what else is out there in the world, right? So I started traveling a bit. I started participating in recreational activities that were outside of that I never tried before, because I was never a drinker. I never did any drugs, and never smoked growing up. Like I barely drank when I was 21, and then I never did any of that kind of stuff. Really, never was just interested in me. And so I started doing that stuff, and it turns out time was a fun time. So that definitely was the downfall, unfortunately, of my poker career at the time. And like I said, I think right now I'd be the one of the top poker players in the entire world right now at either PLO or poker in general, if I would have kept up that path, because that's the path I was on. I was on the path to be one of the top players in the entire world.
But you know what? Who says the path that happened isn't better than that path, right? You never know. I
agree. Well,
you never know.
Yeah, I don't think about it much. And you know, I know it's never going to happen again. It would have been fun to see, like, if I could have got over that hump, because I was finally getting it together. But unfortunately, I started traveling. I started making friends, started meeting women, and my life, the opportunities that were available to me were something that I never experienced before.
Right.
And I took full advantage of those opportunities.
And how old were you?
2012. So I don't know how old I was. I'm not sure, man.
2012. All right. So
26, something like that, maybe.
Yeah. So of course, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, hell yeah, you're going to live it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely lived it up. No doubt about that.
So what advice would you give people who maybe are in a similar situation, right? Uh-huh. So maybe they've come into some money, they've had some success, they've got some notoriety and fame, they haven't had it before, and like they're at that point, right? Like, what advice would you give them of what to do versus kind of not to do?
I wish I had some good perspective. I honestly don't know, because I've never really got back to that one yet. I mean, like, I was killing it back then in terms of the poker and money, and like, I don't really view success based on money. Like even then I didn't view success based on money. I just wanted to be the top poker player in the world. Like that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to get to high stakes. Maybe not the top poker player in the world. I just wanted to get to high stakes. I wanted to build my bankroll up to points wise because I wanted to get, that's where I wanted to be. Like I didn't need the fucking money. I didn't want the money. I didn't even care much about the money back then. And I, unfortunately I still don't in some ways. So that's was
a good thing though. That's a good thing.
Good and bad in some ways, I think. But I think that what would I do? I mean, I don't know, because I never really was there in that complete balance of a mindset, really. So you'd think like, okay, it seems to me what happened was that I had an idea for what I wanted, and then I achieved what I wanted, and I never quite figured out what I wanted after that. So I never set a new goal. My goal was to get to this point, and then from there it was, well, like, let me just do whatever comes up. So I think I lost track of focus, and I think figuring out a way to stay focused when the success starts to build up and the success starts to compound, because what will happen is that if you lose focus and you work so hard to get that success, then that success is going to go away, and then you're going to be sitting there wondering what happened. So I feel like staying focused, at least identifying what your focuses are versus having no focus, is probably a very important thing for somebody who is in that position as well too.
It's advice I'll take right now, man. Right? Like once you start like receiving some success, like you can't let off the gas. You got to keep that goal-oriented mindset. You got to keep that vision of where you want to go. Otherwise, you're right. Like you have the ability to either fall back or go a different direction you didn't anticipate.
Right.
So I
think that, which is fine to do, I believe, as well. But if you don't know, like I think being very aware of where that is and what that's going to be if you do fall up, because like right now I feel like after I kind of jumping forward and we'll go back, right now I feel like my platform has really grown this past like 8 days, with getting on Sports Center talked about, and being on the Ringer podcast, and now having these mainstream mentioned the mainstream articles. And to me, I feel the same exact person, but to everyone else, the perception seems to have changed. And now people want to listen to you more. They care more about what you're saying. They've identified these unique traits and abilities that you have always possessed, that you knew you always possessed, but now they see that you possess them, which are like, for me, it's just my passion and my investigation, my hunger for learning, my desire to get down to the bottom of things, my desire to make the poker world a beautiful place. Like, these are things that have always been me. I just never really knew how to showcase that in a way where everyone else could see it or be interested in it. So now I'm at a point where I'm like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Because it's like, I have opportunity that sky's the limit with what I'm being offered and what people tell me, and even like agents, you talk with them. And so now I'm like, I could see myself falling in that trap again of losing focus a little bit in terms of who I want to be. And I'm not quite sure it's where I seem to be heading. You know what I mean? Like, I think I don't know if I want to go down that path. So the idea of this is important for me to remember now is just kind of identifying where I want to be, what my vision is. And I think that's important for everyone out there to identify your vision. What's the vision for yourself as a person, as a man, as a woman, as a business person, as a career person, as a friend, all these types of things like that. And then putting that out there, honing it in your mind, and then working towards that.
That's great, man. You can always hit the pause button, right? I know we just, like you said, jumped forward to everything you've been doing like the last 8 days. And, it's really interesting what you said, where it's like now all of a sudden you feel like people are taking more of an interest, right? Because it's a bit more mass media type appeal.
Yeah.
And I think that's natural, right? But just the fact you recognize that is really interesting, right?
Well,
and it's
I think it's sad in a lot of ways, to be honest with you,
but,
because it's like, it's like, I'm still the same person, right? I'm still, and I always knew I was the same person. I just figured out a better way to market myself in some ways.
Yeah.
Like I figured out a way, and it's not even like doing something this on purpose. I didn't start doing this. It happened by accident, really, because I just did it because I was so fired up about this kind of stuff. Like I don't want people to, like, it's just so fucked up. It's so disgusting. Like it's just, I can't believe it's happening in poker, right? In the grand scheme of things, is it something like, who knows? But in poker, it's huge for me personally, right? Because this is something I've been interested in fixing in the past with online poker.
I know.
So, but it just kind of happened, man. I started streaming it, like people liked it. I was like, cool, let me keep doing it, right? Like I'm gonna do it anyway, so I might as well stream it. Like I'm gonna watch these sessions on my own, no matter what. And it just really grew from there. And, it's like the perfect storm of events in a lot of ways. It's about luck. Like, it's very lucky, very lucky that I could showcase my personality and the things that I'm good at and package that in a way that people are interested in and people care and people love. People, they I don't know, man. It's like a snowball effect. They it's so weird. It's just very weird and very sad because people out there all have these sorts of qualities. They just have absolutely no idea how to put them out there and get them to a point that they want to get to. But for me, it's a concerted effort because I've identified some of the things I'd like to do. And I think that, if I want to have some best content in the entire world, and I want to have one of the top podcasts in the entire world, I need to expand my own knowledge. I need to expand my own platform. I need to expand and really get myself out of my comfort zone and challenge myself to do things better and to do things a little differently. So this is the perfect storm of testing grounds for me. And I think I'm doing very well at it right now, but it doesn't happen accidentally, right? Like you got to have to want to get after a moment like this. Like you got to seize the moment when it comes up. And I think that's what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I'm seizing this to the best of my ability that I can right now. And it's like a perfect thing. It's really lucky. It just happens to be something that I can be incredibly passionate about and really, really care about, because if I don't give a fuck about it, I just can't do it. That's what I've learned. So I don't care. I'm not going to do it. So I tried to make other content in the past. I just didn't care as much. So I didn't do it as much, but this I really, really care about. So it's just like, it's so perfect.
And for listeners, viewers, what Joey's talking about is the whole Mike Postle kind of situation over at Stones Live Poker. We're gonna stay focused on his journey here, but definitely check out Joey's YouTube and Twitter handles for that entire situation.
I mean, a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, we don't have to rehash
what a
situation.
situation.
I think people heard that shit enough, but yeah, I mean, it's not the specifics of that matters. It's more of the idea that you should capitalize on something while you have it, and not even in like a manipulative, exploitative, outside of who you are type of way, but when you find something that aligns with who you believe yourself to be, then going for that while that opportunity is there, I feel like is incredibly important and something that I've tried to do in the past. And I think that comes in front of us in a number of different ways in our lives. And it's about identifying how that is for you, whether it's a good poker game, a soft poker game, a good business idea, a potential trend you can leverage, or there's a number of different things out there I could think about that you could do. I haven't really thought about it ever, but off the top of my head, I come up with about 15 ideas. So it's like, yeah.
We were talking about that when Berkey was on the podcast, and it was just like when you have a moment and it's something that you're really passionate about and can get interest and could elevate exposure, or just something you're passionate about. And it's like, I need to act now. I need to do this now.
Yeah. I
agree. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Because so many people just don't do it because of the fear of failure or because of the fear of what other people will think.
Okay. I'm talking to my girl. My girl has been rocking me on the entire time. She loves hearing me talk. She calls it Joey Talks, where I like get really fired up like this and I just get deep down in who I am. So she one of her favorite things is loves listening to me talk like this, because it just gets her incredibly fired up. I mean, this is why people listen to me, right? It's like, you can dig down deep and you can get fired up about these kind of things, and you can kind of know who you are a little bit. You can know exactly why you are the way you are. You're not afraid to put yourself out there. But I mean, I'm very fear of failure. Listen, everything I'm doing is inefficient, really. Like I could be doing things so much more efficiently. I could be as successful as I want to be. I could be one of the most successful people in the entire world if I wanted to be right now, whether it's financially, whether it's fame, whether it's with content, whether it's any area of life. But I've been very terrified of that might not being true, right? So I tell myself this, but I'm terrified of that not being true. And I'm terrified of, and I have been in the past, right? I'm terrified of, even subconsciously didn't know it, terrified of really figuring out who I am and finding out who I am and deciding who I am. And it always seemed easier to not have to do those things and not decide who you are and not challenge yourself in some areas, because you got to put yourself out there in an uncomfortable way. So I think I've just been very scared of the uncomfortable feeling that comes with trying new things and going to new places and getting out of your house and getting to these different spots in life. And this is something I've made a concerted effort since I started studying to say, okay, I'm going to embrace the uncomfortability. I'm going to embrace getting out of my space, getting out of my house, and leaving my little area I've become comfortable in, and exploring what's out there in the world, and trying to figure out what is it I like, what is it I don't like. Do I want to be successful on a level where it involves attention, or am I fine being successful on a more private level that is just me and my close friends? Is this something that I need? Because I feel like there's good and bad that come with the idea of being a well-known person or having status or having fame. And I believe that, I could have as much as that as I really want to have. It's just, do you really want that? Do I really want that? And I try to tell myself, for the sake of the podcast and content, that yes, because it seems like it would go well together, but I'm not quite sure I really enjoy any of it.
Yeah, well, dude,
the fame and the status stuff, because it's quite uncomfortable.
But that's where growth comes from, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to recognize that, and then the strength, once you understand that, to actually make decisions that get you on the path you want to get on. But you know what, man? Like you said something earlier, you were talking about, it's just stuff you'd be doing natural. It's just a passion, like a lot of this investigation work, right? And if I think about it, that's been the MO for anything I've seen out of you from a content perspective. It all starts with passion, what you want to do, and having guests on that kind of marry the discussion we're having almost, from a story, a journey standpoint. And then it's like when you did the UFC video, right? Or when you did the Gus Hansen video, I feel like or the whole ACR situation, right? I feel like the foundation of all of that was just passion. And I feel like it comes from a good place, and it's a passion to either improve as a person. It's a passion for other people to hear these things and for them to improve as a person. And then, like you said it, and I actually wrote it down, like, you believe the poker industry is a beautiful place and you want to see it be as beautiful as it can be. And I feel like that's a driving force for you.
Yeah.
Right. And is that a commonality through all the things you've done, when you transitioned to the whole content game?
Well, I think that the main thing I realized, because I thought about why I did these videos and what made me want to do them, and why the hell did I start a podcast? And the number one thing I come back to is I just love learning, and I really want to learn about everything that's out there in the world. And I want to be able to understand how the world works, why the world works the way it works. And I don't believe I can understand that at the level I'm at now. Like, you got to get up to those upper echelon levels of the world, of society, really. You got to meet the people who are in positions of power, who make the decisions, who make the rules of things like that. And the only way you get there is by increasing your knowledge on a psychological and biological level, and really bettering yourself all around, and then building yourself up. And that's the place I believe I'll get to at some point in time, whether I'll know them people, or whether I'll be one of those people, or whether I'll work together with those people, or I'll just get a glimpse of how that world works and why the world is set up the way it is designed. Yeah. But I definitely know that I'll be there at some point in time in my life, and whether that'll be sooner than later, I don't really know what the timetable looks like or what the possibility of that is. But that's sort of something to me, is just, I'm just driven by learning. And I never knew that until I started studying myself. And I was like, oh my God, that's what the fight breakdowns are. Research projects, they're just investigations. I'm just learning. Podcasting is just me asking questions. I love listening. I love just getting people to talk to me. What I realize is that the more knowledge I have and the more interesting I can become, the more that I can get out of people, and the more I can learn, and the better questions I can ask, and the more people will want to talk to you. It's this weird thing of, like, you better yourself as who you are as a person, the knowledge you have, what you can offer to other people, what you can offer to yourself, and the way you hold yourself, then people around you, those start to change too. And the opportunities you get to have around you change as well. And all these different things like that. So I think, like, that is what I realized, was that with content, it comes from a place of loving poker, because poker changed my life so much. And I initially started content because I wanted to help grow Omaha, the great game, and grow poker. But as I start to see how poker's developing with online and live, that desire is rapidly decreasing. And now it's more of the, let's kind of step outside of this comfort zone and let's challenge myself to do something that is really going to help people out and help people better understand what it's like to be a person, a man or a woman. I'm mainly thinking about men. Like, how can I help men become men?
Good
Like,
for
how
you,
can
brother.
I influence them to become someone that they're proud to be? And how can I influence them to become a best version of themselves in some type of ways like that? And I think that's ultimately where I'd like my path to go, whether that's a service or products. I started a business. I started like my GTO club a couple years ago. I had it for a year. It's like a monthly membership group where it was like a mastermind group, basically a group of guys. You got like 15 guys, all very smart guys from all over the world, whether they're the poker or they're in the business world, and just kind of brought them together for that. And I think I'd like to do something in that capacity, whether it's like creating a program that uses artificial intelligence with machine learning and it gets better over time, that help you become just the person that you want to be, whatever that is. So I'm not quite sure exactly what it'll be, if it'll be like a famous content or well-known content, or covering pop culture stories, or covering the mainstream investigations, or building a product that helps people out, or just maybe by myself in a mountain and fucking have a yogurt stand and a ice cream shop with my girl and just have some friends and be happy that way. I don't know what exactly it's going to entail right now.
You don't have to know, right? But at least like one of the foundational things you want to do is be someone that helps other people be self-aware about themselves and become the person they want to be, dude. I mean, for you to know that right now, that's a goal. And now it's like all this shit that comes at you, whether it's any type of the content you're providing or any opportunity that comes your way because of the content from the past or the content now, like if that's your driving motive, then you're going to be able to make decisions that align with that purpose.
Right. Yeah. In theory, right? I mean, not always, but theoretically, if you can keep that on your and on your focus, and you can keep that on your brain, then yeah, you should be able to, but theoretically, easier said than done. These things are all easier said than done.
Yes.
I mean, I'm very selfish, which allows me to focus so much on myself, right? Like these are all myself related things. And in some ways they're not, because they focus on helping others, but it all comes from a place of like, the reason I can think about doing this is because I know how to be selfish with my time and with my thoughts, and I'm trying to be less selfish. And that's a process on its own, because a lot of everything I come back to is so ambition based and that sort of thing like that.
Oh, there's different levels of selfishness, right? There's just straight up selfishness, choosing yourself over others, even if something's important to them. And then there's ambition and wanting to achieve your own goals and desires. And that's not always selfish, right?
Yeah.
That's just drive. So, but you know the difference, man. You know the difference. So
maybe,
or you're starting to know the difference.
Yeah, I'm starting to.
So, all right. So we don't have to back all the way up to the time when you transition from poker to content, but let me ask you this, right? When you got into the content game and you realized how much freaking hard work it was, like what kept you going, dude? And what keeps you going today? Like,
I never thought it was hard work, really.
Really?
I've always,
this is hard fucking work, Joey.
No,
I do this part-time.
No, this is so easy compared to poker. Like poker's hard.
Yeah.
I always tell people, man, like when I first started, I told myself, I want to be the Dan Nerano Pop in Omaha. I want to be the voice of PLO. I want to have one of the top podcasts in the industry. And to be able to do that was the easiest thing that I've ever done in some ways, because I already had the poker knowledge. But like getting to high stakes online poker, that's hard. Like beating the most competitive people from all around the world in the poker world who are only working towards getting to that point, that was very, very challenging to do. In some ways, not really, but kind of. And so this stuff is so easy. Like this is just a matter, and it's not as black and white. Whereas poker, like you do this, you get better. You do that, you get better. You identify the uncomfortable spots in your game. You identify the areas of weakness. You get better. Okay, you play. You see what works against you. You incorporate that into your game. You learn how to exploit that. Like the process for getting better at poker is quite simple to me. But the process at getting better at this stuff is not quite as black and white in a lot of ways, because a lot of it is subjective in some ways.
Mhm.
And there are other things that aren't subjective. And the one thing that is not subjective is the idea of leverage. And that if you understand the idea of leverage and you understand how to leverage what people want to see or who they want to hear from or what it is that they want to engage in, then this is like a common business thing that I think PokerStars, that David Bazoff, when he bought a PokerStars, he understood that there was a large customer base that was being very under leveraged, and they were all focused on one dying area to him, when there were other growing areas that those customers could then be on. So like him talking about leverage in interviews, I've listened to everything he's ever done. It's incredibly fascinating to me. Like I look at him and I say, I fucking hate what he did with PokerStars, but he's a business genius with what he did with the Maya. And shout out Dave Bazoff. I hope to get him on the podcast one day, actually.
Oh,
and but yeah, I think kind of getting a little off topic there with which is kind of that idea. So kind of lost my train of thought.
No, it's good, man. I mean, look, here's the thing, Joey. Like, you don't know this, but everything we're talking about, and I know it gets deep at time, but that's the whole point. Like, for the listeners to hear these types of things and relate to it and be able to act on it in their own lives, but actually even for you to become self-aware about the stuff you're talking about, and selfishly me to hear these types of things and how do I incorporate it into my business life too, right? So it's like, I want everybody who watches this or listens to it, including you, me, those folks, to get something out of it.
This isn't necessarily what people want to hear.
Right.
So and the thing is, they will want to hear it one day from me. So this is what my content will become at some point in time. But right now I need to play the content game in order to get to the point where these are the conversations I can have only. And to be able to have these conversations where more people listen to, they have to see that in you first before they're going to want to listen to you. And then once you can have those conversations on a higher level with certain guests who they also know, that's when the people. So I think for me, it's like, I do care about the people watching, and I care about that progression of things like that. And I understand that in order to get to that point, I need to kind of work in these other things that are interesting to me too, but not quite as interesting. Like, I would prefer just deep conversations only, but people want to talk about what's trending and pop culture and those sorts of things like that. So we talk about that. That's interesting to me too. It serves its purpose as well, but I personally enjoy when I can get a little deeper. And you mentioned the content game being hard. I think content is so fucking easy, but it's easy in that, like, what's the doubt? What's losing, right? Is there a losing? Not really, right? Can you deal with people telling you that you're fucking idiot in comments? Like, I don't care. So like the feedback I get, I might not want to keep it around, but it doesn't really bother me too much. And it doesn't bother me to a certain level. And I don't maybe get the veracity of it. And if I got the veracity of it that some other people get, maybe it would bother me. But to me, like, it more motivates me because you let me know what I'm doing wrong that I can get better at. And I need that because that's the only way I can get better. And if no one's telling me that I need to get better at something, then I don't know what I need to get better at. So I'm not doing everything great. I know I could be better. And that's why I need people to let me know, like, hey, dude, you're fucking talking too much or this or that. And I can say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I either agree or disagree. Now I can compromise. I can say, okay, well, then maybe I'll change that in my own path or whatever. So, but like in terms of content, it's just fun. Like, I love doing it, man. It's so cool. It's so fun. It's just so enjoyable to kind of have conversations with people. I love making videos. I make all my own videos. I love designing them. I love coming up with the story. I make them in my head, and then I love putting them down. I like getting better at process editing. I like getting process of better understanding graphics and understanding stories and understanding how to do all these different parts of the process. So like for me, it's more of a fun challenge of marketing and of creation and all these different areas of things versus like hard, I don't, the only hard thing is like doing things I don't really want to make, that part's hard and I just don't do it. So.
But you're a businessman, like you said, right? I mean, you got to do some of those things to appeal to your audience to continue to grow, right? Even if it's not the stuff you're most passionate about. That's business. That's target marketing, right? That's just, and you've identified that. All right. So you mentioned like constructive criticism, right? And being lucky enough to have people who will be that for you.
Well, I'd say there's some constructive, but there's also non-constructive criticism I deal with a lot.
Do you have any people who like are close to you that you really rely on for constructive criticism to help you grow?
No.
Wow.
No.
Seek those people out, brother.
Yeah, I don't really talk to anyone like that. I mean, I try to encourage that from, I kind of keep to myself, bro. You know, I seem like I might not, but I'm pretty keep to myself. I pretty isolate myself a lot. Like, I have a lot of friends. I have how many friends? I have hundreds of people I could be friends with, like people I'm acquaintances with. I get messaged. I mean, there are so many people out there that want to be my friend, and that I'm sure would be great friends for me, but I've never really learned how to do that quite well. I've always been pretty do it myself based and not rely on anybody else. So the idea of having friends to me is quite foreign in some ways. So like I'm not good at it. I'm really bad actually. And I'm trying to get better at it in a relationship standpoint with my girl now. So getting better at that. But outside of that, like, you know, there's no one that gives me constructive criticism. Like I listen to everything. I'm always listening. Like people say things all the time. So I'm picking up everything. Like you say things, I'm picking up. The way you do your podcast, I'm picking up on it. The way your background is, I pick up on it. Like I pick up on all these different things.
Took me 30 minutes to hang these damn things.
Yeah. Like I'm just observing everything. So I learn things about myself from this conversation, from what I say. And then I learn things about myself from the things that you say about me. And so I'm always sort of like picking up little pieces of things that people say and sort of incorporating them into my style of being a human being. So
still getting deep on the Faded Spade podcast with Joey Ingram, man. I love it. This is why we're doing this shit, Joey. So, all right. So as we kind of round this thing out, man, you know, look, I know you've been going hard the last 10 days and even past that. And I appreciate you even waking up from your nap to do this. And I know you're going back for another nap, but a few more things I want to know because it's kind of fun. So what gave you more satisfaction? Was it, or when you think back on it, like, was it the times you were playing the high stakes poker and you met that challenge and you were crushing it? Or like when the Gus Hansen video or the UFC video or this whole situation now like hits, like
definitely
what gives
poker.
You more satisfaction?
Definitely. 100% poker.
Yeah.
I worked so hard at that. Like I dedicated like my years of my life to playing poker, studying, thinking about it. By far that gave me the most sense of satisfaction that anything has ever given me once I started having success. And then once I became like a regular winner at 10-20 and just being able to beat that limit on a consistent basis and just pretty crush it, I was like, all right, this feels good for a while. And then it got boring. Just like, I'm kind of over this now.
Yeah.
But the UFC video, when that went off, it was more like, holy fuck. I always knew I could do this. I always knew I could create something that a lot of people would be interested in. I just know I'm in the wrong industry for it, but I know I can do it. I have an ability to put together a story and to find the right content to tell that story. I just know I've always known I could do that. So that was more vindication for myself of like, I knew it. And then I was like, okay, I can do this in anything if I wanted to. And then with this now, this what's going on now is like very unexpected because I didn't expect this to happen at all. And whether it gives me satisfaction, not really. I just find it more sad, honestly. I really do. Like, it's kind of sad in that, like, this is what it took, you know. For me, I feel like this is sort of what the kind of work I'd been doing for a while, and I've been very inconsistent, unfortunately. And there are things I could have done much, much better. But I find it sad in some ways that like now everyone's like, you know, now you're popping a little bit, and now everybody wants to be a part of it, or now they're showing love, or they're showing this, or showing that, and that's just how it works, right? It's a different sort of thing, but.
And it's because of this situation and not something else more positive.
It's because of a situation where a dude was allegedly cheating on a live stream, you know? So it's kind of sad. Like this is what it is, right? Like,
so how do you, and I'm glad you brought that up a couple of times, right? So, and that's why I think in the beginning of the show, like I was kind of in tune to like, would you think that's why you're on the show? Right. And that's why I brought up in the beginning of the show for people who are listening, like, we've been planning this since early September, right? And we were going to do this regardless of the current situation. But think about that for a minute. You're getting this notoriety because of the situation that isn't the most positive situation.
Yeah.
how do you now with this? I mean, you've had influence, but now you have even more influence. Like, how do you hope to use that influence in like an even more positive way, like for the industry, since that's been a foundation of yours, or even in your life as you go explore other things?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not really sure. I don't really know. Well, I have no idea what I'm going to do after this, really. Like, I don't know what it's going to entail. I don't know if I even want to stay this public or get this much attention on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really undecided exactly the path that I'm going to go down after this kind of stuff takes place. And, it's kind of good. I'm getting notoriety in ways, but I think for people that are in poker, it's compounding with everything else, right? It's like the body of work. It's the poker itself. It's the accomplishments I've had in the poker space. It's the challenges I set for myself. And then the podcast I've done, the great conversations I've given people out there, and the ability to hear from these top poker players and these other great minds of the world. And maybe you can learn, or I mean, you should have learned something if you listen to all my podcasts, which a lot of people have. So, and then other videos I make too, my funny videos, the fight videos, the investigate. So it's like something for everybody, I feel like, in there, right? There's and if you know all the parts about me, then you can then maybe you feel more connected. Okay, I know his poker history. I've watched the podcast. I like the fight videos. I like the investigations. Now we got this. So it's like this combination of things. And I understand, like, maybe some people are just going to know me from the investigations. They're not going to fucking know anything about poker for me. They're not going to know the prop bets I've done or the challenges I've done, or that I wrote a book about quality of successful high stakes poker. Like, they're not going to know these things about me. They're not going to know I'm out of line. They're not going to know lived around the world. Like, they're not going to know what I wish that they knew about me. They're not going to know this about me, like how I actually think deep down, because I never really put that out there in general. So you just sort of understand that not everyone's going to get you, and they're going to understand a part of you. And whether they like that or don't like that, that is what it is. You have the ability to shift that perception if you want to, and if you care enough. And, I'll kind of go from there, and don't really know exactly what the next step is here. It's going to do some traveling, hang out with my girl, make her feel comfortable, make her feel happy, give her some attention. My girl needs attention. She's a loving woman. She's a great woman, amazing woman. But I've definitely been neglecting her, and she's been rocking with me on the content stuff this past month. But we knew that going into it. Like, I had to do content for a month straight, just what I had to do. So I kind of get back to that with her, and make it more of a enjoyable life, and get out there a little bit, travel some, versus like sitting on my computer and just fucking grinding.
Dude, take her to Europe, or shit, take her to the Caribbean, man. It's awesome this time of year. Get away from everything.
Yeah, that's the plan here, man. I'm definitely gonna get out of here. So.
All right. Well, I'm glad, thanks for getting deep with me here too. I didn't anticipate us getting this deep, but that could happen, man. And I'm glad you were game to do it. So let's wrap it up with a couple of things. And I typically end like with these two kind of questions, right?
Okay.
Because people seem to get a lot of direction out of it. So during the entrepreneurial journey you've been on, like, what's the biggest thing you think you've learned about yourself?
Oh, I'm fucking bad at a lot of things.
You know what? That's such a, like, why does that happen to us, dude? I've heard the same thing. So
I'm very bad at a lot of.
So elaborate on that.
I have no ability to plan. I have no ability to understand how to allow anyone to help me in any capacity. I don't want to give up the control. I don't like to control people, but I like to control my own life. So maybe I'm just very controlling of my own life in some ways. And I'm very scared of uncomfortability.
Okay.
I think that's what it is, right? I think that I used to not be, and then I failed pretty hard with poker in terms of, mixing business with pleasure, lost my way, lost my mind in some ways, and then haven't wanted to make that mistake again in a lot of ways. So I think that that's what I've learned, right? Is that I'm bad at a lot of things. And if I want to build to a scale that I might want to build to, I need to get better at those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to get better at all those things. So the bigger the scale, the more I need to get over that. It's just a matter of defining what that scale is for myself.
Do you ever take time to, like, not congratulate yourself, but do you ever take time to, like, feel good about the things that you have accomplished, or feel good about the strengths you have found out about yourself?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes no, sometimes yes. I think I feel good about what I've done a majority of time.
Cool.
When I do things, but I got a lot of thoughts in my mind, so I'm always thinking a lot of things.
All right, man. And last thing we'll wrap with, like, if there's one thing you want other aspiring entrepreneurs to know, one thing you want other aspiring entrepreneurs to know about their journey and what to expect, what would it be?
Their journeys and what to expect. Well, I mean, listen, it's not always going to go their way, and you're going to do things that don't work out well. You're going to put something out there. It's not going to go well. You're going to start a campaign. It's not going to go pop off how you want to pop off. And I think it's just kind of redefining what that process is and redefining what you might not be doing right if you really want to do it right. And then trying to decide, okay, like, what are my goals? What it's going to take to get there? And do I want to sacrifice the things that are needed along the way? Because if your goal is I want to be a fucking CEO of a company, well, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of things. If your goal is you want to be famous, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of things. Your goal is you want to make a lot of money, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of things. I think people don't realize that. They don't realize that they have to sacrifice to achieve their goal. And in some ways, right? And you can get better at understanding sacrifice and understanding how to justify sacrifice in your mind. And you might sacrifice shitty food to fucking get in good shape. You sacrifice going to the bar with your friends every single night in order to become one of the best poker players. Like, there's certain things. So then you decide, okay, what am I willing to sacrifice in my life? And the idea of understanding that is vital to achieve goals that are going to be on a grander scale in the entrepreneurship world. I think that is one of the most important things people to kind of understand.
Bang. And that is an absolute perfect spot to kind of wrap up the Founder Hour Faded Spade podcast segment with Chicago Joey, the Prince of PLO. GTO.
I've never been called the Prince of PLO, and I don't think I'm ever going to call myself that again. But
do you know why I did that?
I'm rocking with the nickname, and I like it, so maybe I will. Maybe I'll put it on a fucking shirt or something.
It's a card company, dude. Faded Spade is a card company. The king, the queen, the Prince of PLO. That's where it came from, brother. Dude, awesome. Thank you for making time to do this. I know it's in between naps. Thank you for being so open and genuine, and deep about your story. I think literally I say this a lot, and Sean and I say this a lot. Like, if one person from these things gets inspired by it or can relate to it, or it helps them figure things out in their life, like, then this is worth it. Yeah. Right. And no doubt in my mind, this time you've spent with me here, we'll do that for someone, dude. So, wrapping up, where can people hook up with you online, man? Where can they follow you? Where can they get to know you more?
Yeah, I got a lot of places. I mean, if you're listening to this for some reason and you've listened this entire time and you don't follow me, then that's you're not missing much, I'm sure, if you don't have to. But I'm on Twitter at @JoeIngram1 and Instagram at PopBGTO. People call me Poppy. You didn't know that. Whoever's listening. And then at YouTube at @JoeIngram1. That's about it, man. That's it. I'm not big on the calls to action. So that's what I got. That's what I got for him, man.
I could take
search
that out.
Joey Ingram online. You can find me wherever you want to find me if you want to find me.
All right, Joey. Then we're done. We're wrapping up. Joey's got a nap to take. The dude maybe had 3 hours of sleep in the last week. Joey, thanks for coming on the show, brother, man.
All right, brother. Thank you much, man.
See you, bro.
The Faded Spade Podcast is sponsored by Duck Productions. Contact them for all of your podcast editing needs at randy@duckduckpro.com.
Upgrade to Faded Spade and get 15% off the new face of cards with code PODCAST at fadedspade.com.